Mm-hmm.
Oh God, what's that? Focus isn't on my butt.
What?
The first shot's always a tush shot.
Oh, that's great. That's
I know.
lovely.
I know, it's awesome. Are we live? We're live. Of course, we were probably live on YouTube, but I was just saying that. Okay, today is Yoga Nidra Meditation. So basically, it's just a long guided meditation going through the different parts of the whole self, trying to balance the layers of our whole self. And you don't really need to understand the layers or connect with that way of breaking up the human experience. It's just one way of breaking up the human experience and looking at it, one way to move through and have an experience. So try to stay focused on my voice as much as possible. Notice that your mind will drift away. Notice that you may feel that you've drifted off to sleep. These things are all normal. Try not to beat yourself up about any of that. Try to give yourself a nice experience. Just have an experience, noticing what the mind does, noticing what happens when you start to release and surrender into the ground. So not only pay attention to my voice, but pay attention to what happens in the pauses in between. So today's imaginative, there's an imagination section. We're going to explore the brain, travel through the brain. And as we have this experience throughout the practice, pay attention not only to what the mind is doing while I am guiding you, but also in the pauses, the intentional pauses in the practice. So it's a way to just get to know your whole self, your whole experience. One of the biggest misconceptions of meditation is that it is about clearing your mind, stopping your mind, controlling your mind. So it's not so much about that, but more about getting to know your mind, getting to know your whole self, how when your mind does what it does, what happens in the physical, what happens to your emotional state, getting to know the whole human experience, rather than being stuck up in this cognitive experience that we're often trapped in. And we're so stuck up here that whatever's going in on the emotional, physical, spiritual level is just completely out of flow, out of balance, and completely just reactionary. So we're going to do a little practice of exploring the brain itself. So this practice is traditionally taken on the back in a corpse pose. However, choose a pose that you know you can be most comfortable in for an extended period of time. You want your physical body to be as comfortable as possible. We're going to be here for a long time. So it's not that you refuse to move. If your body is aching and calling to be adjusted, give yourself permission to give yourself a small adjustment, and also pay attention to that adjustment. So as you adjust, quickly scan and look for any other places that might have awoken in the body or perhaps brought more tension. So find the position, the props. Kaylee is all propped up. She has something under the knees so that the low back and the back of her legs can be nice and soft. The hips can land very solidly in the ground. She has an eye pillow over her eyes to help tune out the sense of sight. It also can be very comforting. So one of the things about eye pillows, don't have that rice resting directly on the eyeballs, but the comfort of having a little bit of weight around the muscles of the eyes can be very comforting. It can help draw you into the practice inside. And one of the things that you want to do for your physical body is to start to feel the weight of gravity. So you want to start to feel like you're being drawn into the support below you, the support of whatever's below you, be it a mat, be it the ground, be it a cushion, whatever is below you. feel like you are surrendering into it and letting go. As you begin the practice, really take in your environment. So take a moment to really know where you are, know what the sounds are in your room, know what is around you, know what the sounds are far in the distance. Maybe you can hear street noises or the noises of the neighbors or something else. Maybe you can hear other distractions. So notice what they are and try to take a moment to tell yourself that there are sounds. They're just sounds. And rather than thinking about whether they should or should not be there and whether you can control your entire environment and make it this beautiful Zen space, try and just be where you are. You may also want to take note that there's some noises in our studio that may come in too. You can hear the guys downstairs. So one of the ways to turn off that fight or flight instinct is to tell yourself that these noises and distractions are not something to be fearful of. They're sounds that are present in the environment. And we can turn off that watchful part of our brain looking for signs of alert and stress. Can also be helpful as you go into this practice to say to yourself, right here in this moment, all of my needs are met. I can switch off, I can turn off, I can take a little break. Start to notice the breath in the body. Notice how it wants to naturally move the body. Perhaps beginning to notice that each breath can be a little bit different. And notice any stress that forms in your body when you focus in on the breath. Many people do have a stress response when we try to think about our breath. Some people also have this strong muscular response, starting to really draw in deep, solid breath with the strength of our stomach muscles. So just start to notice that. Notice what is happening and see if you can gently soften control of the breath. So start to let it roll in and roll out as if you were already in a place of deep sleep. Maybe you can begin to be aware of the feel of your breath on the upper lip as it leaves your nose. Begin to connect with the heaviness of your body, allowing your body to really land on the ground, land into support, and let the muscles that hold you up begin to soften, release their burden. And then we'll move into a practice that's called rotation of consciousness. So we're just going to practice bringing all of our awareness to one point in the body, seeing how much sensation we can actually feel in that point of the body, and then move it. So practice moving our awareness around the physical body. We'll begin with the right hand. Become aware of the right hand thumb, first finger, second finger, third finger, fourth finger. Palm of the right hand, back of the right hand, wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit, travel down the right rib cage, a rib at a time. Locate the space between the rib cage and the hip. Right hip, thigh, kneecap, lower leg, ankle, heel, arch of the right foot, ball of the right foot, right big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe. Land your awareness on the entire right side of the body, as if softening into and becoming fully aware and present on the right side of the body. Gently shift your awareness over to the left side of the body. Find the left hand thumb, first finger, second finger, third finger, fourth finger. Palm of the left hand, back of the left hand, wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit. Travel down the rib cage, a rib at a time. Find the space between the rib cage and the hip. Left hip, thigh, kneecap, lower leg, ankle, heel, arch of the left foot, ball of the left foot, left big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, and fifth toe. Soften your awareness into the entire left side of the body, as if turning on the lights and arriving home on the left side of the body. Locate the left foot, right foot, both feet, left knee, right knee, both knees, left hip, right hip, cross the hips, left rib cage, right rib cage, entire torso, left shoulder, right shoulder, cross the shoulders, left hand, right hand, both arms, left ear, right ear, the space in between the ears. Land all of your awareness here and notice what is present. Notice that you can notice your thoughts. And notice perhaps a little space in between the thoughts. And from here we will insert a little truth vow, an intention, positive sentence, something that you're working on in your own life. Sentence should be short, positive, tense, and saying it as if you believe it already true. For example, if I want to work with self-worth, I would say to myself, I am worthy. Say your sentence as many times as you feel you need in a way that you would to a dear loved one. With conviction and compassion, believing it already true. Then we'll move on to the energetic pathways in the body. So imagining intentionally moving energy throughout the body. You can think of this as scientifically the electrical pulses of our nerves and our neurons in our brain. You can think of this visually as just a color or temperature or texture or feeling moving through the body. We're going to connect to the spinal highway. We're going to connect to the fact that the brain sends messages down the spine and then throughout the body, and then the body sends messages back through these same pathways to the brain. And imagine you could see this spinal highway or feel this spinal highway. Imagine at the top of the spine there's a pulsating ball of energy, and it sends its way down the spine and then works its way back up. Thinking of this connected circuit from the brain down the spine and then all the way back up. And once you have a way to visualize this pathway, imagine sending energy, fresh energy, cleansing energy down the spine and having it sweep back up, sweeping away anything no longer needed, moving down fresh and sweeping away anything no longer needed and sending it out through the brain and out through the crown of the head, as if releasing Any stagnant energy, any holding patterns, anything's no longer needed. Thinking about cleansing intentionally our own internal circuits. Moving fresh energy from the brain down the spine, all the way back up, and then sending out what's no longer needed. Imagine your pathway is free of holding patterns, free of restrictions, free of memories, just moving fresh energy. And the more that you focus on it, imagine your pathway getting stronger, more vibrant, more full of life. And then we're going to imagine that that pathway could connect like a power cord connecting into an outlet. And have us see a trickle of that energy reaching out just above the crown of our head. And when it reaches out, it connects with an energy source just above us. It's going to plug itself in, and just as if it were being plugged into an outlet, it's being recharged. Imagine that just above us is a source of energy that contains precisely what we need in this moment. Without trying to cognitively label what that might be, just imagine freshly being recharged with precisely what we need. Imagine your pathway stronger, brighter, more vibrant with life. And then gently see yourself unplugging your energy and connecting back into your own internal circuit. Noticing it more energized, more refreshed. And gently land back in the center point of the brain. So if you could land your attention right on top of that meeting place of the spinal cord and the brain. Place all of your awareness here and notice what is present. Notice if you're drawn to judging what is present or labeling what is present. Notice if you're drawn to being to the world of should or should not, what the mind should be doing or should not be doing. See if you could gently just sit back more in a witness chair, like lounging on a couch and looking back at the brain. as if the mind were a movie screen and you're lounging on the couch and just watching it go. Noticing that your thoughts fire in all kinds of directions. Noticing perhaps some familiar patterns. And thinking about being something more than just your thoughts. If you can notice these thoughts, then you are more than just these thoughts. These thoughts are not your whole being. They are part of the picture. We're going to move on to the practice of opposites. So gently begin to feel like your physical body is beginning to be heavier and heavier. Perhaps imagining the sensation of your whole body being filled with lead. Your bones are heavy. Your toes are heavy. Your feet are heavy. Your legs, your torso, your arms, even your fingertips are heavy. Feeling heavier and heavier and more deeply rooted into the ground below you. As if you're so heavy and the force of gravity is pulling you so deeply into the ground that if a storm were to come past, you couldn't possibly budge. Then gently invite in the opposite sensation. The sensation of lightness. As if your entire physical body were beginning to be filled with air. Feeling lighter and lighter and softer. Your feet are soft and light. Toes are soft and light. The legs are soft and light. Your torso becomes softer and lighter. Your arms and shoulders soft and light. Imagine even your fingertips and your head filled with softness and lightness. Perhaps even beginning to connect with the sense that you could soften and drift away on the softest breeze. And gently see if you can experience both of these sensations at the same time. Experience feeling the feeling of softness and lightness, and the feeling of heaviness at the same time. Holding space for these opposite sensations. And then gently and softly walk your awareness back to the center, the mind. Allowing space for whatever is present here. And then for our imaginative journey today, we're going to imagine that we could make ourselves a little teeny tiny version of ourselves. Try to make that version of yourself some kind of small, simple image. Try not to make that image in something that you would judge or something that you feel if you were this kind of person, you would be happier. Maybe just think of this miniature version of yourself being a little ball of energy. We're going to imagine that we could be a tiny version of ourselves and take a journey through the physical brain. So imagining a brain, more of a cartoonish version of a brain, those drawings of a brain, with the gray matter in the deep crevices of the brain. Imagine you could take a little journey through the crevices of the brain as if they were pathways. So as if you're about to take a long walked path in a forest, a hiking trail that's well worn. Imagine you could travel these pathways in your own brain as if they were a walkway. Notice where you're drawn to walk. Are you drawn to walk to the part of the brain that thinks about a certain thing? Perhaps you're drawn to the visual part of the brain where dreams happen, or the musical part of the brain. Perhaps you're drawn to the patterns of fear and worry. Just notice where your pathways take you. And as you begin to walk these pathways throughout the brain, imagine that you could gently observe a place where your brain has taken you, see it, and then turn yourself around and take another pathway. See where it goes next. Imagine these thoughts and these places your mind goes to being something that your mind does, a pathway that it has. And this little miniature version of yourself has a choice. It can notice this pathway, it can notice the thought, and then it can choose to make a turnabout and go a different way, perhaps explore a new path. Imagine exploring your brain as if you're exploring a new wilderness. You're taking in the details of your mind. And perhaps you come to a very familiar thought pattern, a worry that runs around in your mind. Maybe you can imagine putting it in a filing cabinet. It's not that we no longer want to have that worry or that we're trying to pretend it's not there, but we could put it away. So rather than the pathway being there that we constantly tread on, we could leave it where it is and turn around and tread a new pathway. And each time a distraction, perhaps a sound or something in our environment, or just another thought pattern pulls us away, just imagine again, seeing it somehow visually, seeing it as a thing in the brain, observing it, and then turning around, looking for something else, forging a new pathway. And slowly, we're going to journey through the brain as if we're beginning to go through the layers of the brain, getting closer and closer to the center of the brain, the instinctual part of the brain. So the very stem of the brain is the place where all the automatic stuff happens. Think about the automatic breathing, and the automatic heartbeat that happens without our mind having to control it. We're coming towards this space in the brain. And just above this space, the automatic part is the awareness part, the alert station, the part that takes feedback from our environment and from our emotional state and sends out warnings. You can imagine this as being an energetic ball in the very center of the brain. And journey your little miniature self closer and closer to this space. Begin to experience this space. This little miniature version of their self is going to look at this space as being a part of our evolution, our warning system. Notice that it is connected to, but not entirely part of, the cognitive system. Notice that it is connected to the rest of the body, but not entirely part of the whole body. And then imagine this space being a space that you could soften into as if it were a little cuddly soft ball of energy, and you could take a little seat right here. This little miniature version of yourself is going to look back at all the pathways we explored, as if you're sitting on a swing near the pathways, just looking at them, these familiar pathways. Feeling more and more like you could sink into the center of the brain, further and further away from the thoughts. Knowing that they're there, becoming less and less entangled in the thoughts, controlled by the thoughts. And softening more and more into this center place, right below the thoughts. And as the brain does what it does and it draws all of your awareness back into those thought patterns, just gently see yourself, this little miniature version of yourself, observing, noticing that you've been drawn away, and then gently turning about and drawing closer and closer to the center point of the mind. And you can continue this practice just gently walking through the brain and taking your pathways and drawing back to the center part of the mind. Or you can gently see if you can walk that miniature version of yourself down your spine as if your spine were a spiral staircase. And you're going to walk further and further and further away from these thoughts and the workings of the brain, the cognitive part of our existence, and closer to our spiritual self, our heartbeat, the source of our life force. Imagine right in the center of the chest is a warm, cozy cave that we could gently walk our awareness, our little miniature version of ourselves, down to. And this place is a warm and comforting place. Think of it as a soft, warm, cozy cave. Maybe there are cushions and things of comfort that you bring with you. And the more details you paint in your imagination, the more powerful the experience. Imagine you could curl up in this center space and connect to the sound of your own life force, the sound of your own heartbeat. If you've journeyed down towards your heart center, take a look around and paint in the details as if sealing in a vivid image in your brain that will be easier to come to next time. And gently walk your awareness back to the center part of the brain. We'll move on to a practice of rapid visualization. So we're going to practice seeing an image as if our mind is a movie screen. See an image, observe it, and let it pass by. The practice of letting it flow without label or judgment, just noticing what pops up when certain words are said. See it, observe it, let it pass by. So we begin with this small baby turtle. A herd of elephants. A room filled with chairs. A field of sunflowers. A snowstorm. The dark side of the moon. Single candle in a very dark room. Phoenix rising from the flames. Children playing in a playground. The eyes of someone you love. People gathered in prayer. Birds migrating. Single feather blowing in the wind. Diving into the deep blue ocean. Sand squishing through your toes. A sacred temple. Sitting in meditation. See yourself sitting in meditation. Observe yourself sitting in meditation. Before coming back from this place of rest, Remember your truth vow, your intention from the beginning of practice, and whisper it to yourself again inside your head as if planting a seed in fertile soil, knowing that it will take root and grow. And then as gently as we went into the practice, begin to gently bring yourself back out. Begin perhaps by noticing the weight of your blanket or clothing on your physical body. Maybe you can feel the temperature of the room. Notice some sounds in the distance and some sounds closer. And then without waking up the cognitive brain too much, as if resting right into the intuition of the body, knowing that you've been at rest for a long period of time, and this is a magical moment that you can reach and stretch and adjust your body in whatever way your body feels it needs to move. Take this moment to take a big deep breath in and take a stretch and a wiggle and an adjustment, maybe moving side to side, tuning into the natural awareness of our own physical bodies, and taking this magical moment to adjust, stretch, lengthen, open, and then slowly make your way to a fetal position on whatever side is calling to you. Curling up in a little ball, a little protective ball, and connecting to the fetal position. So the fetal position is a position we come to remind ourselves of a time in the womb, a time when all of our needs were met and we had not judged ourselves as negative or positive, our experiences as negative or positive, our emotional states as negative or positive. And we were just as a fetus in the womb where we're a spark of life. And we come to this pose to try to remember that that spark of life exists within us, unchanged by all of our experiences, unchanged by that harsh inner critic, unchanged by our ego. There is that spark of life that exists within us, waiting for us to connect within. Notice anything that is present. Notice any physical sensations. Notice perhaps a difference in emotional or energetic state. And try to let go of the concept of there being a right or wrong answer. So all of these practices, a yoga practice, a physical practice, a meditative practice, the word that is key is practice. So it's all just practice. It's all just getting to know what's inside, getting to know this whole experience that we're having. So there's no right or wrong way for the mind to be. There's no right or wrong way for the physical body to be. It's just getting to know what it is and getting to know how we best work with what our own personal experience is. And there's so many tips and techniques. And some people find their magical answer for their own existence, and they want to make it your magical answer, and it's not necessarily the right one for you. So thinking about your own experience and how you are feeling, how you are thinking, what you are responding to in your own body in this moment. Sometimes some of these practices can stir up things that are ready to be processed. Notice if that is happening. And notice if you just have one of those days where nothing connected at all. Just notice. And slowly bring yourself up to a seated position and bring yourself so that your hands are at prayer at heart space. Finishing your practice in this pattern, this familiar pattern, creating this little sacred ritual within your mind and body and physical experience. Connect with this. You're bringing your left and right sides in front of your heart, as if accepting yourself as whole and complete, precisely as you are. So we change and we grow. Change is kind of a constant, but we can let go of this concept that we are broken and that we must change. Rather than thinking of self-improving and beating ourselves up and making ourselves better, softening into the concept that precisely as we are is just right. And that getting to know who we are and getting to be comfortable with who we are and what we are experiencing softening into knowing what the mind does, knowing that perhaps our environment that we're living in overly triggers our stress response. Getting to know what our mind and our body does when it is triggered. And rather than controlling all that, just getting to know. Getting to know yourself so well that you can begin to let go of the fear and stress and judgment we place on ourselves in our whole existence. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, if you're just joining us for the first time, if this is a new practice for you and it does stir up some emotional states, sitting wherever you are, maybe you're in a car, maybe wherever you can take time to just sit for a second. Place your hands on your knees, on your lap, maybe hold your hands, clasp your hands, feel something textural in your hands. You can grab a rock, something textural, something that's in nature, connects you to nature, or you can take a walk outside. Anything that has a grounding experience for you. One of the things to remember is emotional states are supposed to ebb and flow. They are filters for our environment. And that it's only when we try to fight and control them that they become problematic. So if there's an emotional state, a memory, something that's coming up for you that's ready to be processed, find ways to soften and ground. Maybe let it happen. Find ways to trust in your body, your inner wisdom of your body, to allow the things that are ready to be processed to come up. Trust that you are ready. Trust that you are strong enough. Trust that you can let this go. You can let it flow through you. So, thank you. Oh, gosh, I almost tripped and fell on my